We can speak to Senator Chris Coons. He's a Democrat from Delaware, sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks indeed for joining us here on BBC News. Just want to get your reaction, first of all, to these events in Qatar. And it would appear, according to the White House, that it was the US military that alerted the president to what was going on, not Israel, such a close ally. What do you make of that?
Caitríona, this is a striking development that Israel did not inform us, at least according to your reporting, inform our president, that they were about to strike Hamas leaders in Qatar, even while there was an ongoing effort by the Trump administration to negotiate a hostage release and ceasefire. I will remind you that at the beginning of this year, when President Trump came into office, there was a ceasefire in effect. Hostages were being released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Humanitarian relief was flowing into Gaza. And in the months after that, the war resumed, the suffering resumed, and there have been no further hostage releases. So this strike by Israel, I think, takes us further away from any possible resumption of a ceasefire and of more hostages coming home.
What does it say, though, about the US-Israel relationship?
It suggests a real fraying of the trust between Israel and the United States, that neither the senior leadership of Congress nor President Trump was notified in advance. This has long been a very close relationship, but there's been more and more strain in recent months as many of us in Congress have called for an end to the war in Gaza, for a ceasefire and the release of hostages by Hamas.
Then, of course, there's the other issue of the close relationship between the US and Qatar, and this attack taking place in Qatar's sovereign territory, again without any notice to it. What's your view of what might happen there?
Well, Qatar has a U.S. military base, a very large Air Force base, and thousands of U.S. personnel. So there are additional equities, reasons why the United States might have expected to be notified. And I think Qatar, which has long hosted Hamas, has played a constructive role in negotiations to secure the release of hostages and ceasefires in the last 2 years, most principally 9 months ago when there was a ceasefire achieved. So I think this will simply make that role harder. Hamas is, of course, a terrorist organization and recognized as such by the United States and many of our allies around the world.
Now, over your career, you've had many endeavours in peace talks and trying to talk to different sides on different conflicts. What does all of this say about diplomacy when one party to a conflict is in a third country, let's say in this instance, assuming it's safety there to take part in negotiations, and then this happens?
It suggests that one party is not interested in negotiations. That's what led to President Trump's statement that this strike by Israel does not advance American interest or Israeli interests. I would say that the core interest of humanity, the United States and Israel, is in ending this war in Gaza, securing a release of the hostages still held by Hamas, which started this conflict through their brutal attack on Israeli civilians on October 7th, but also allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza to relieve the suffering and starvation of millions of innocent civilians.
And Senator, I just want to ask you about a different issue entirely, because again at the White House press briefing there were a lot of questions about the attack in Qatar, but also there were a lot of questions about Jeffrey Epstein and the links, if there are any, to President Trump there. We saw the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee putting this so-called birthday book out there, the bawdy, lewd drawing that allegedly was made by President Trump, which he absolutely denies. We have to say the White House says that it is fake. What do you want to see happen with this matter now?
Look, the Jeffrey Epstein matter is a tragic, grotesque case of child abuse, of sexual trafficking. We should center everything we're talking about on the concerns of the victims, who have repeatedly spoken out, including before a bipartisan group here in Congress recently, asking for all of these files to be made public and the information about which powerful and rich people who were friends of Jeffrey Epstein were involved in these tragic matters. It's long been known that President Trump was a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein. It does not surprise me at all that he sent him a birthday greeting with off-color suggestions and cartoons and so forth. And I think the best thing for us to do in the interests of both widespread public interest in this matter and the concerns of the victims is to listen to what they're asking for and make sure all these files get opened and the information gets released.
Okay, U.S. Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware, thank you very much for speaking to